Hello, MGTOW. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So I want to start out by saying that MGTOW can save lives. It can help men who are lost find meaning and purpose in their lives. This is a universal message. This is something that's important to all people, in all cultures, in all walks of life, in all stages of their life. We call it MGTOW, and indeed it is descriptive. You know, I often talk about whether or not someone growing up in a system can afford to have a fiercely independent and self-reliant attitude if it's always appropriate. And indeed, it's not. But what happens when the culture, the society, the media, the institutions of the society become so restrictive, so authoritative, that they demand this kind of childlike compliance from its citizens? You know, this idea that whatever it is you believe has to conform to somebody else's idea. Now, as a general rule, you know, this is a decent practice, especially when you're young, right? Like, you don't know what's going on, so you just kind of like go along with the group and the majority. Hell, when I buy things on Amazon or eBay, if it's a real popular, high-selling model, it's like, well, I guess I can have some confidence in this one. Of course, I check everything out beforehand, but yeah, if the entire herd is running to the right, it's a good idea to run to the right, probably. But aren't we witnessing a situation where our society, our media, our institutions are demanding a kind of group think, a kind of herd mentality? And isn't it really coming to a head? And isn't the suffering and the marginalization and the dehumanization and just the general contempt that is displayed towards men emblematic of this trend? I mean, honestly, just in a culture that wants to portray you as the enemy, right? Just right off the bat, by your nature. And it's no small thing. The institutions, the media, the substance within which you live is actually discouraging and punishing these traits, these characteristics. And so the need for the MGTOW message is born. How can you go along with a system that wants to destroy you? And even if you do so, won't there come a time when the cards are on the table, the chips are down, and you know you're being asked to commit some act of self-sacrifice that is just unthinkable? Won't it come to that? You know, but I suppose in the meantime you work with what you have and you do the best with what you have. You know, if you're on a lifeboat and everybody on that lifeboat thinks that, you know, I don't know, whatever, flying spaghetti monster, you know, is their savior, unless you want to get thrown off that lifeboat, you better go along with the whole flying spaghetti monster idea. But let's say, you know, your life depends on it now. And it's a choice between checking the maps and navigation or the flying spaghetti monster. And you know, to make the wrong choice is to incur the wrath of the group and be thrown off the lifeboat. So isn't that a situation, I mean, you know, that we kind of find ourselves in? I'm sorry, I've been warned not to do this, not to make up these stories, that they don't help my point, you know, get across. They don't help in this regard. And thank you to the person who gave me that. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I don't exactly follow it. I think that many men adopt an attitude of, you know, compliance and it's not submissiveness. It's, you know, just going along with this whole general idea that men are the enemy, that men are the oppressors, that there's just something inherently wrong in male nature. And I think they're so sorry. And they are. You know, you can see they're deeply apologetic. I don't know if they're aware that it affects a certain aspect of their personality and their behavior. You know, that it actually makes them timid and physically weak. And no, I don't think they do see it. You know, and perhaps that was the point. You know, a society where men don't even look like or act like men anymore at all, you know, where everybody is wearing a gray uniform with a bowl haircut. You know, the women no longer look like women and the men no longer look like men. I mean, isn't that your perfect society of equality, right? No gender bias there, right? And you can see this fashion statement, right? And you can see this trend in fashion, you know, of masculinizing the women and feminizing the men in their dress, in their manner, as if this is somehow woke, you know, as if this is somehow, you know, trendy, and not betrayal and an oppressive tactic to shape the cultural mind to an agenda predicated upon falsehoods and generated based out of envy and fear, not merit, which is, of course, what the MGTOW message suggests, you know, that you govern yourself with, you know, results, an accurate appraisal of the situation around you based on your senses, based on your thought. This is the basis of Western philosophy, right? That everything, is questioned and subject to analysis. And we use the best tools that we have. We use our senses, we use our mind. And I think it's, plainly obvious how this is threatening to a group mind, to a hive collective that can make anything true if it just believes it. And if just enough people click on it, it must be true. And it doesn't matter if it is or if it isn't. I think that point escapes many people, when they see these, demonstrations of cultural outrage, and inherent in that demonstration is the desired abolishment, of those things which cause the outrage. And what a gleeful experience that is, to give yourself over to that, right? I show a lot of these riot pictures, for feminist demonstrations, pictures, and you can tell that, the participants, they're enjoying themselves. They really are. I'm thinking of doing just a whole video, just looking at the pictures and commenting, on what it is that person's expressing in that moment, because it's not deep political concern. If you analyze someone's, brain patterns and their thought patterns, when you ask them a question of a purely, comparative study, one part of their brain lights up and analyzes the situation. But when you ask them a political question, okay, a different area of the brain lights up, an area associated with, wants and desires and feelings, not analysis of the situation. So if you're, in a conversation with someone of a particular mindset and you just can't get through to them, that's because they're not really using their mind. And this is an important subject, an important topic. Most people don't use their minds. And as a human being, it's the mind is your strongest tool, right? Like, as human beings, we're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We don't have the sharpest teeth or claws. We don't have the biggest wings. Like, in a purely physical sense, we wouldn't make it. So what is it that we have? Clearly, that makes us the dominant species on the planet, right? Although some of you might debate that. What is it that we have? If it's none of those other things, well, it's your mind, it's your intellect, and it's the very thing that some people are asking you to turn off and not to use. Your individual rights matter. Your individual personality matters. And if we can protect that as a society, then everyone is safe. Theirs is protected as well. But if we can't protect that, if some other concern overrides that, and we're willing to just toss that aside, as we are, then it doesn't matter what we give people, all is lost, because you're willing to sacrifice the individual. And this is the beauty of, this message. Now, are there some aspects of the individual, of selfdom, that cause people problems? Oh yeah, of course, and I think it's each individual's job to look into that and to, see what aspects of their personality. But I mean, it's usually arrogance and defiance and cruelty and unthinking, right? Because your tool is your ability to think. You're not born knowing how to build a dam like a beaver, or to spin a web like a spider, or to build a nest like a bird. The human being is the least capable at birth and takes the longest to develop all of its skills. Did you know that at 6 months, a monkey is better at sign language and symbolic language than a human child is? So if that's your indicator as to where they're both going and heading, you've made a mistake. And then physically, it's the same thing. The monkey can climb trees at 6 months easily. Some human beings can't climb trees until, I don't know, they're 40 or 50. So there you go. So in an age where the group mind, the hive collective, demands compliance and conformity, otherwise it punishes. And when that group mind becomes twisted and perverted and plays the victim card too much and doesn't recognize the necessity for self-determination, when this aspect of human nature, which is not healthy and is not the kindest thing in the world, is overindulged, it leads to a dystopia. It's a horrible situation. It's not a utopia. It's not, you give everybody what they want and nobody has to work for it. That's not a great thing. They didn't want it. They didn't earn it. They didn't do the things necessary to acquire it. and you're going to give it to them, well, then you're going to have to take it away from somebody who has already done those things, who has demonstrated those qualities. And aren't they the people who should, in fact, have it, since they are, in fact, the people who earned it and built it? And this goes back to this fundamental principle of the individual, of the self, of the sanctity of the self. Are you going to deny that? Are you going to override that? And the answer seems to be, if enough people want it bad enough and can be whipped up into a strong enough frenzy, then yeah, that's what they want. And the card they're playing now is that men and the ideas and the principles that built their culture, their society, their civilization, are in fact unfair and oppressive and unjust, when they are in fact merit-based qualifications for dealing with the real world. This is why you cannot reason with them in many instances. This is why it's not even functioning in that part of their brain. Once you believe something, once you've been told something and you believe it to be true, that's it. There's no more questioning. Like if we analyze the parts of your brain that, are thinking about this, there's no questioning. And if we analyze what happens when somebody disagrees, it's the emotional response that kicks in. You become invested in believing it. Now, some of you might ask, well, isn't MGTOW the same thing? And it can be, right? Of course it can be. But generally it's not, because MGTOW is, about self-ownership, self-determination, reclaiming the self in a world that is asking you to sacrifice it, to give it up, as if it is a sin, when it is in fact a virtue that we should be defending. And we do. I mean, these are our principles, and these are under attack. So the people who embrace these principles are feeling threatened, and rightly so. And understand, it can't really work. You can't. It stems from this proto-family idea of, the whole world is based on the mother and the father and the child and the family, right? So if everybody could just get what they need in a fair manner, everything will be all right. And, it's a lovely thought, right? And, bless everybody for having it and good luck. But you can't apply it to the world. You can't apply it to people who, are dealing with their own demons, the things they don't want to face, the truths that they ignored. I meet a lot of people now who have a lot of problems, men mostly, and they all want to tell a story, and the stories go back years and years and years and are so convoluted and twisted, and you could be passing somebody on the street where they might ask you for a cigarette, and then they'll explain that their brother has their truck, and that their brother could never be trusted, and that their mother was never raised them the same, and it just goes on. And I believe it's because, the people, they keep replaying these certain things, these certain ideas. Now, they're not always the truth. They're not always the answer. Sometimes they're the very false interpretation of events that enable them to continue to play the victim and continue to indulge in some unthinking, probably highly emotional behavior. And I'm not saying that it's not justified. I'm not judging or anything like that. But I see that a lot. Like they want to talk about what brought them to where they are. And I guess that's the thought that keeps replaying in their mind, is what the fuck got me here? And they're trying to explain it. So a lot of my work now, almost all of my work now, is focused on helping men in need. Many of the things that I spoke about, in my earlier videos, I live them now. I practice them now. And it's a good thing. But I'm going to wrap this up for now. I think I've said enough for now. I hope you don't mind the longer format videos without a lot of bells and whistles with the videos yet. We work with what we have. We do the best with what we have. We could sit around and complain about all the things that we don't have or that we need in order to do a job, or we could just do the best job that we can with what we have, right? So there you go. That's what we're doing. All right. So let me know what you think about these ideas, topics in the comment section. I'll talk about them some more. I'll, kind of pick up where I left off. These are not going to be your typical YouTube videos. I can tell you that. I just am not in a position to make them, is the whole thing right now. But let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I need subscribers. Make the voice stronger. It'll be fun. And join me again, Howard Dare, as I hope to and plan to have more content for you. Thank you, MGTOW.